Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Welcome to the Courageous Leadership Series. We're running into now episode 5. Thank you. I'm going to say thank you for all my loyal followers who are actually stuck with me through episode 1 and now on episode 5. Welcome back. Great to have you back. What we're having a look at today is how to develop the courage to share what you really think. So this is very much focused on relationship mastery. If you remember back to the different facets of leadership mastery, this is very much about you being trusted, engaging, and inspiring. And once again, we'd love you to ask and share questions, share insights, get involved with us through the various social media channels that we have. So engage in a conversation with us. We'd love it. So what I'd like to do is start off with a definition of what is a conversation. I think it's really quite interesting when you ask people what a conversation is. And I do this regularly in our workshops. And it's usually a two-way transfer. It's quite limited in how we define what a conversation is. So I've leveraged off the work of, and the research, 10 years research, Robert Bolton, who wrote a book called People Skills. Some fantastic information in there. And it's very much about sharing knowledge, sharing skills, attitude, emotions, and values with other people. And then checking to make sure the message is received as intended. And I think it's really interesting when you look at that definition, because you go, I don't often consciously share my values, and sometimes I might not consciously share my emotions, but they ooze out and you are sharing them in a conversation. The other thing that I think is quite challenging and interesting is, can conversations happen via text, via phone, email, all the different modes we have of connecting with people. And if you'd asked me about 10 years ago, I'd go, nah, you can't have a great conversation on Twitter or texting. I've had some of the most amazing conversations with people, some of which I haven't even met face to face. So I think you can have conversations other than just face to face, and they can still be and still sit within that definition. Now, I mentioned Robert Bolton. I'm going to share with you his some of his research and his definition of a conversation. And often when I look at this, I say to myself, I don't know how we actually ever really have conversations. So let me share it with you and get you thinking, get you challenging yourself. So it all starts with this. It starts with how meant. Now that's your intent. That's what's in your head, right? I don't know about you, I do some of my best thinking in the shower. So hot water hits my head and then I have clarity on how meant. It's in my head. I know the kind of conversation I want to go and have. But guess what? To get to here, which is how sent, I've got to do a few things. I've got to choose my words. I've got to choose my gestures. I've got to choose the tone of voice I use, the volume of voice I use. There's a whole lot of choices I have to make to translate my intent into what I'm sending. And then let's have a look at this part. How received. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had plenty of experiences. As I'm sending the message and I'm watching the person, I go, note to self, this is not going how I thought it was going to go. You should have had a smile on your face right now. You should have been looking happy. You're not looking very happy right now. I would like to push the rewind button and start all over again. Have you ever had that experience? I have it quite regularly. And why that happens is because the people who are receiving the message come with their baggage, come with their meaning that they attach to the words you've chosen. They come with emotion. They might have had a bad day. There's a whole lot of stuff that this person comes with. One word could spark a whole lot of baggage and story or meaning for them. And I'm going to give you a really silly, simple little example because to me, it's one that I always remember because it triggered for me a really deep learning around the how meant, how sent, how received. One of my daughters, she was about 3. I always tried to pride myself in being the kind of mother that would always, really listen with the intent to understand. I was in my least favourite room in the house, which is the kitchen. Not great in the kitchen. So I'm there and I'm trying to juggle all the stuff that's going on in the kitchen. She's having a teddy bear's picnic and she needs a teddy bear off the top of a cupboard. So she asked me for the teddy bear. I was busy. I didn't even look at her and I said, yeah, I'll get it. I'll get it just now. And she put her hands on her hip, stomped her foot, and she said, is that my now, Daddy's now, or your now? I know, he burst out laughing. And I switched everything off in the kitchen and I sat on the floor and I said, well, I don't know. I don't think I know the difference between all of those nows. And she said, well, my now, and she grabbed my hand and she was trying to pull me across the floor because it was that instantaneous, you are going to get my teddy bear right in this moment. She said, Daddy's now is a little while. And I said, and what about Mommy's now? And she went, I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's 3 and she's already got this how received that when I say now, she's going, oh gosh, this could be anywhere from now until, like in this moment until, 6 months later. It actually got me really thinking about the use of that language that I used with clients as well. And I thought, I wonder if clients are feeling the same. So I think it's really interesting to start taking responsibility for closing these gaps. So what I say to people is, there is a gap here between how you mean something and how you send it. And there is a gap between how you send it and how it's received. And as a manager and a leader and a business owner, it's your responsibility to minimise those gaps through the questions you ask and the kinds of conversations you have. So I encourage you to think about those gaps and the conversations. And you can do it at home as well as in the business. Really powerful to be focusing on how meant, how sent, and how received. Now, the thing I've said to people is this can actually be quite disabling as well if you take it to its full extent, because you'll be going, oh my gosh, I still haven't nailed the how meant, so I'm not going to send it yet. And by the time I do send it, I've actually missed the boat on when was the right time to actually send the message. So something that, a little gift I will give you that I know a lot of teams have taken away and used very powerfully is, but you have to have agreement in your team, is that we're going to agree to talk in draft. We're going to agree the concept of talk in draft is that there are going to be gaps, and instead of judging each other by those gaps and walking away with wrong meanings and all that kind of stuff, we're going to check things out with each other. And we're going to do it in a way that we're not judging each other. So I think that's a really important concept if you're willing to give it a go, and you can do it with your family as well, is that concept of talking in draft with each other. And the reason we're going to do that is if we go back, and I think it's important to re-look at this, and we looked at this in episode 3, and it's really, really relevant for what we're doing today, is to look at the fact that we want to be through conversations in this open space with each other. Because when we're in that open space with each other, we're in that performing space, and we're unleashing not only my own potential, but the potential of every single person in the business. The only way I'm going to be in that open space is through conversations. So I've got to have that how met, how sent, how received, and do it in a very open way. And when we're doing it in an open way, that means we've got to have the courage to share. Which means, how meant. I've got to, if there's stuff bubbling around in my head, I've got to hold myself to account to go, I'm actually going to share this. And there might be a gap between the how meant and sent, but it's better that I share it than keep it bottled up. And then the other thing that we've got to agree is that we've got to have the courage to listen. And this is really, these two things here, that's what we're going to be looking at today when we're looking about conversations and having the courage to share what you're really thinking and feeling. The flip side of that is, particularly as a business owner, you have to have the courage to listen when other people are sharing, and listen in a way that you're not becoming defensive, angry, justifying. Otherwise, people will stop sharing. And hopefully you would remember, if you've looked at the previous episodes, you would remember that if we do that, we're then operating with blind spots, right? And in terms of what stage of team development, when we looked in episode 3, we talked about the fact it drags the team back to storming. Now, if you're not having the courage to share what you're really thinking and feeling, then what's happening there is you are operating with a facade. And somebody I was working with last night, we talked about the fact that, this is the difference between good to great. This is mediocre, it's okay, it's, we're doing all right, we're norming. And the reason we're stuck there and not going there is because we're not having real conversations with each other. So we want real conversations in that open space. And as we said in episode 3, this is where a team forms. And this is where you're in the unknown space. And the only way you're going to shift from the unknown is through conversations, through having the courage to share. Share what's really happening for you. And as I said to you, that whole piece about talking in draft, I think enables more sharing. And I want to share something with you that comes from our notes that I use when we're facilitating our leadership program. And it talks about only an individual can hold themselves accountable for speaking out. No one else knows that they wanted to speak or that they had something to say if they leave the conversation without saying what was rattling around in their head. So that accountability is yours. And you have to encourage every single individual in your team to bring that level of accountability, to be real, to talk in draft. If something's rattling around in my head, let's get it.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.